So, what am I doing racing around the San Juan Mountains of Colorado? Stick around and find out. Let's back up and start at the beginning. It all started with me opening an email with this video link.
Congratulations! You've been accepted to Camera Camp. We'll see you in September. Bye!
Several months back, I'd filled out an application for a free event sponsored by Sony Camera and organized by YouTube stars Justine and Jenna Ezarik. The event was at the Flathead Lake Lodge in Bighorn, Montana. At the time, I'd be starting in Missouri, 1,700 miles away, so it sounded like a good excuse for a road trip. I started off in the south central Missouri Ozarks on a glorious early fall morning, driving towards my old hometown.
I'm going to Kansas City, here I come.
I wanted to cover some ground today, so my stop in Kansas City was brief. I swung through the historic 18th and Vine District, where I snapped a few shots and grabbed some of the world's best barbecue at Arthur Bryant's. Then was back on the road. Next up, Nebraska. There's a lot of corn here. A lot of corn. Hours and hours of corn. Finally, on the western edge of the state, you'll pass by the famous 300-foot-tall Oregon Trail landmark and National Historic Site, Chimney Rock. The Native American word for it translates to elk penis, but I guess they didn't want to put that on a map. Given the choice, I don't know why you would ever call it anything else. Now, time to head into Wyoming. Early that morning, I made my first planned stop of the trip, the small town of Casey, Wyoming. I used to photograph quite a few concerts, mainly for promoters and record labels, but sometimes for the artists themselves. One of my favorites was rodeo bareback riding champ, platinum recording artist, and Casey resident Chris LeDoux.
Been working like a dog, slaving on the fence line, stretching those wires tight.
His story's pretty amazing, so look him up and check out his music. I'd been a fan long before I was ever hired to photograph him. Bought my first tape when I was about 8 years old. He was still selling them off the tailgate of his truck while competing in the rodeo. Outside of the Grateful Dead, I've seen more of his shows than anybody. Over the years, I photographed him probably a dozen times, and we became friendly. During setups, he'd sit down and we'd talk golf or art or music. A few years ago, a small park was created in downtown Casey with a sculpture of Chris on his 1976 world record ride on this horse stormy weather. I sat for a long time in this beautiful park, reminiscing about those days. Chris passed away after a battle with cancer in 2005 at the age of 56. But here we are finally in Big Sky Country, Montana. I've always loved history, especially the Old West, but in all my travels I'd never been to the Battle of Little Bighorn National Monument. The short story: the U.S. Army 7th Cavalry was led by this man, General George Armstrong Custer. He led a force of about 700 men and stumbled upon a large camp of Sioux and Cheyenne in late June of 1876. Estimates say there were 1,500 to 2,500 warriors in the camp, led by chiefs such as Sitting Bull, Crazy Horse, and Gall. Not fully aware of just how large the camp was, Custer divided his force into three and attacked. And you know how that turned out. Custer and 267 others were easily killed in what the Native Americans called the Battle of Greasy Grass. This is the actual spot known as Custer's Last Stand. You can see a memorial marker over the troops' grave sites and take a driving tour where you can see the view from Reno's Hill, among others. The huge victory for the Native Americans was short-lived. Within a few years, their way of life was completely destroyed, and most were forced onto the reservations. Crazy Horse and Sitting Bull both surrendered, and were both killed while in custody. Next stop, Camera Camp. It was at the Flathead Lake Lodge, beautiful resort right on the lakeshore. Justine and Jenna were a wonderful host, along with all the people from Sony. The workshops were great, and there was a massive amount of Sony gear that you could check out and spend the day with. Pretty much every lens and camera they make was available. Myself and 3 others even got to spend a long session with 6 of the lead Sony engineers, who asked tons of questions and took notes about how we used the gear and what we would like to see in the future. Plus, lots of fun social events and a really amazing chuck wagon buffet style meals. It was a great event, and I'm so glad I was picked and able to go. With the event over and an early season blizzard forecast to move in over the next few days, I made an early exit from Montana and headed south. Hello, Utah and Arches National Park. This is a beautiful area, and even just driving through the park is pretty spectacular. Back in Wyoming, I re-injured my ankle pretty badly, and I was still hobbling around, so I didn't venture too far down the trails, but I still made a few photographs. And next up is Colorado. I started off wandering through the San Juan Mountains, going through Durango, and then just wandered my way north. Worked my way up through Silverton, found a great little mountain lake to stop and have lunch. Then it was time to continue along the famous $1 Million Highway into the mountain town of Ouray, Colorado, one of my favorite places. Making my way across the mountains, I followed the river back south until I finally ended up cutting east towards home, bringing me to Kansas. I made it into Great Bend, Kansas the first night, and my plan was to spend a day or two photographing the Flint Hills area again. But I woke up with a blood-red eye that was painful to the touch. I've had some pretty serious eye issues lately, so I called an eye doctor. It was Friday, but she could fit me in the end of the day if I could get there in time. So, with 7 hours to make the 6.5-hour drive, I took off. Not much time to stop for photos, especially driving with only one contact in. It all turned out pretty well, though, and I made it back safe and sound, and in time. And the eye pretty much cleared up on its own, though. I hope you enjoyed this short, hastily put together video. There are some still images from the trip over on my Instagram, which is at Bobby_Thompson. And you might want to check out my website, BobbyThompson.com. It's got all my social links, Patreon info, and info on buying prints. I'll have more and hopefully better content coming in 2020, so feel free to hit the subscribe and like buttons below. See ya.